What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at SOFI Technologies, ticker symbol SOFI, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of tomorrow's trading day, Thursday, February 1st. Well, SOFI stock here today down about 57 cents, 6.79% here, up just a little bit here after hours, approaching $8 a share on low volume. Let's take a little bit of a closer look here. If we zoom into just today's movement, you can see here actually some half-decent scalp setups, especially in the morning here. By the way, if you guys want to get scalp setup alerts, here in our Roensch Capital Gold server, swing trade setup alerts, human verified, all this is by me directly, by the way. Unusual options activity, platinum one-on-one. That link to join will be in the pinned comment. But let's take a look here at the volume specifically on the 5-minute chart. I think the volume is really important to consider when we are looking at moves. Let's keep yesterday here in the mix and take a look at volume. So what's really interesting here is, of course, we had that big fade intraday yesterday, really grinding down pretty consistently throughout the entire day yesterday. But a lot of that move was actually on lower than average volume throughout the day. We got most of the volume, this makes sense of course, off the open, but that was, maybe not so ironically, the biggest pump of yesterday morning on that bigger volume. We got a similar movement today. Highest volume saw a little bit of an upside in the stock, and then a lot of the pullbacks saw lower volume. You can see here, it's not like toward the end of the day here we started to get some higher volume as the stock faded into the close. But that's really the only case that's so obvious that I'm seeing as far as that is concerned. So listen, bulls, that's not ideal, right, to see high volume fading into the close. Bears might be looking at that salivating, but just understand that especially when we look at yesterday and then this morning's open, a lot of the highest volume candles off the open are seeing attempts to push higher, which is, better than the alternative. So let's look here now at the 30-minute chart, get some context here. You can see that gray line, that is the 200 period moving average. That one is certainly in play. You have the white line, the 50 period moving average, moving here to the downside, coming close. So we have the 200 at 810 and the 50 period here at 8.25. Okay, so these are both very much so relevant. Priority number one, though, if you are a bull, just reclaim the 200 and hold it as a support level. If you're a bear, you want to see that thing get rejected and fade down below, ideally fade off that level down through $8 a share. The best possible bullish scenario for tomorrow here, at least looking contextually at the 30-minute chart, is going to be breaking above and holding both the 200 period and the 50 period moving averages, which would put the stock, depending on how that looks tomorrow, most likely at 8.25 or even higher. That's about a 4% move. So listen, SOFI has been a volatile name. That is well within a realistic range. So I'm obviously keeping an eye on that. So let's move on now here to the 4-hour chart. You can see the 50 period, that white line, incredibly relevant as of right now. We just faded below there and are now testing it back to the upside, granted on very low volume, okay, but here in the after hours. So tomorrow, looking at the 4-hour specifically, okay, if you're a bull, priority number one, reclaim that 4-hour 50 period moving average and start treating it as a support level. That'll put us, just below 8 or a little higher up into 8. If you're a bear, though, you ideally want to see this current after hours test hold as a resistance and fade down lower. From a bullish perspective, though, that next target, if we end up seeing a break and hold of that 50 period as support, it's kind of open sky, at least on the 4-hour, up until about 8:55, 8:56. 850 may act as somewhat of a psychological area, but that 200 period is above there. So that puts us, that's kind of the next area to watch if we end up seeing a hold. Down to the downside here, you kind of have a safety net down just above 750, at least from a technical perspective. You had 3 days in a row treating that as quite a strong area of support. So that would be what I would be looking for if we end up seeing a break downside, whether you are bullish or bearish. I think psychologically that would be the next area that people are paying attention to. Now let's look at the most important chart of them all. That's going to of course be the daily. This is the one that has by far the most eyeballs and is incredibly relevant on SOFI stock right now. Okay, this is by far the most popular time frame when you look at all the money at play, institutions, funds, retail and traders, retail investors, more so retail traders as well. And with the two most popular technical indicators, the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average, the stock right now is kind of holding, because remember, this is the daily chart, so it's going to show the close. If we look back here, right, the stock's right at about 793. So the stock right now is kind of holding that 200-day moving average, you know, almost within a couple of pennies here. So priority number one, really there's two. If you're a bull here on SOFI, looking at this name heading into tomorrow, hold the 200-day moving average. That gray line is the 200-day moving average, by the way. I may have misspoken and said 50. That's the 200. Priority number one as a bull. Hold the 200-day moving average, making our way up through 8, up toward 50. The 50-day moving average, right, is what I meant. Now, if you are a bear, your priority list is very short, okay? Just break downside off the 200-day moving average. That is your priority. If we end up seeing a bounce, you would ideally want to see 8 hold as a resistance. If we bounce up through 8, you know, if we end up breaking the 50-day to the upside, I think for a lot of bears, it's going to be all bets are off, at least from a psychological perspective, right? That would be very discouraging to a lot of bears. But listen, bears, you just want to see a downside break, potentially a retest and fade off that 200-day. What I mean by that is you break downside through this gray line, retest, test it as a resistance, and fade off of it, reclaiming it as resistance. For bulls, that would be the ideal scenario to not see. You know, as a bull, you're just looking for a break upside. A hold here, first of all, a break upside through 8. Ideally, eventually a break upside through 826 and hold that as support. Implied volatility here, very important to look at. Actually tanking off post earnings, which again, we did talk about. Not unexpected at all to see that. Actually very predictable in most earnings cases. That's called IV crush. So if you owned options heading into this earnings release, you probably noticed some IV crush, but that now puts IV down in the lower end of the range, which does open up some potential opportunity for IV pump for newer options buyers looking to get in. That goes for both calls and puts, by the way, implied volatility. So let's look here at the options chain and see what the options traders are thinking heading in tomorrow. And I can already see this looks like a relatively bullish chain. 444,000 total contracts traded. Good sample size. That gives us some good data here. Nearly 67% calls, remainder being puts. And if we look at short-term speculation here, that's 0 to 20 delta, what are the options traders thinking who are putting on the most leveraged, most speculative in nature contracts? Well, you tell me here, right? We have 118,800 calls in that range and 42,400 puts in that range approximately, okay? We're seeing nearly 3 times the short-term bullish speculation compared to the short-term bearish speculation. So that's what the masses are telling us. That's what the traders are saying. That's what the data says. As always, they can be incorrect. Helps out tremendously, you guys, if you just drop a quick like on the video. Let me know in the comment section, by the way, what stocks you guys would like to see covered here in the near future. Even if it's just SOFI, I'd love to hear about it. And I will be reading all of these suggestions. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.